All right, with this pitcher, he is a 6'4", 185-pound right-hander. And let's start with the good things. So he's throwing low 80s up to 84. And if you watch this in regular motion, pretty smooth, pretty quick. Let me back that up. I've got it synced up here. So if you watch him, everything's pretty relaxed, pretty under control, low effort. And then at the very end, snap right there. Getting low to mid, almost mid 80s there. So that's the good. And that size as well, room for growth on the frame. Things that I did notice that first stuck out to me. Let's talk about the what first. So what I see is that the pitcher tends to be a little bit more in a straight line towards the target. How I can see that is at the leg lift, there isn't a ton of what we call coil, where the hips are rotated back this direction. Just kind of facing straight at the camera over here. So there's not much of a coil there, which adds the bend. There is a decent amount, it's kind of deceiving, but you can actually see a decent amount of bend in the back leg. Oops, it's not good. Let's go clear. Well, that's not a good angle. Let me just draw it. Like, that's not a bad angle. That's actually really close to 90 degrees, but you can see that the 90-degree angle is tilted that direction. Why is that? Well, because if we look back at the back leg, and if we draw this line right here, you'll notice the pitcher goes to the left of that line as he pitches, which is not always bad, but for this particular athlete at 6'4", 185 with a pretty live, quick arm, I would be curious to see, from a movement standpoint and everything, if we made him less linear and rotated a little bit more if that athlete was to get over there. Or if the athlete then was more rotational, they might, or he might land more in this area. He doesn't have to be in a straight line, but I would be curious if it just naturally ends up straightening out because of fixing what happens earlier on when he probably goes a little bit knee happy and into his toes. So I'm looking right here at that knee, and you'll see it goes forward. Meanwhile, the hips, the pelvis, go forward as well, as opposed to going backward. So if he were to squat like a normal squat, the knees would go forward a little bit and his hips would go backward as well, and he would sit into that squat. And at this point, the heel might still be into the ground. And then afterward, he would end up potentially landing more in this direction as opposed to closed off. And again, closed off can be fine, but I would be curious what that looks like. And the other reason that I thought it looked a little rotational is if we look at the foot over here, it tells me that whether consciously or unconsciously, this pitcher could be focusing on striding out in a straight line, trying to get a long stride, because you can tell he's reaching with that toe. It's pointed straight up. It is not a relaxed ankle. That is a flexed ankle right there. It is extended out there. It's flexed upward, pointing straight up. And that just tells me that potentially he could be trying to reach in that direction, as opposed to everything back here, including the back leg, driving all of the rotation. Meanwhile, that front foot would just be along for the ride. So I would be curious how that ended up working out. But again, for 6'4", 185, throwing this effortless, looks like he's got plenty of years to grow, both in age and in physicality and strength to gather. I think he's got a lot of room for growth and already is doing really well at that age, 2024 grad. And I just love the quick arm action. So what I like to call this, so again, we're looking at this one over here, is a quiet explosion. So everything looks really quiet, and then boom at the very end. I love that. That's awesome. It's great from a pitching standpoint for the hitters, making it look deceiving. So a lot of really good things. I would be curious what it looks like to get him a little bit more rotational, which all starts with the setup.